September 20th, 2017, a Category 4 hurricane named Maria makes landfall on the eastern coast of Puerto Rico shortly after 6 in the morning local time.
El piso del segundo piso ya está casi a punto de subir. Estamos atrapados.
Hurricane Maria is officially the most deadly U.S. natural disaster in the last century.
There's a high rise about 100 yards behind me, and it's continually tearing pieces of the building away, and they're flying through the air like projectiles.
Sustained winds at 155 miles per hour, the strongest storm to hit the island in nearly 90 years. By that night, the entire island has gone dark.
150-mile-an-hour winds ripping buildings apart, knocking out power everywhere. All of the electricity is out tonight.
The official death toll released by the government of Puerto Rico in the days that follow is 64. But there is a part of this story that remains hidden. The actual death toll. What happened in Puerto Rico in the fall of 2017 was not a hurricane. It was a hurricane, followed by the longest blackout in American history, followed by a year of dying that the government refused to count.
Don't forget us. Just don't forget us.
To understand what happens to Puerto Rico on September 20th, you first have to see the island it hit and why it was already wounded before Maria ever arrived. 2 weeks earlier, on September 6th, Hurricane Irma had passed just north of Puerto Rico. Irma was a Category 5. It did not make landfall, but it grazed the island close enough to knock out power to more than 1 million people, kill at least 3, and leave the electrical grid hanging by a thread. Repair crews had been working around the clock for 14 days when the next storm appeared on the forecast.
55% of the island is still in the dark.
Her concern was getting electricity back.
We did not get much damage in Puerto Rico. I think it will be back sooner rather than later. I mean, I hope. I have no power at home either.
The reason a storm could shut down a modern American territory for almost a year is in what was holding the lights on. Puerto Rico's electrical grid was decades old. Most of its transmission lines were strung through mountainous interior terrain on wooden poles, many of them dating back to the 1960s. The Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority, the public utility responsible for the grid, had been bankrupt for 3 months when Maria formed. Maintenance had been deferred for years. Backup systems were thin. Generator fuel supplies were limited. And Irma had just spent 2 weeks chewing on the margin. 3.5 million American citizens lived on this island. Most of them had been told the worst of the season was already behind them. They were dangerously wrong. On September 16th, a tropical depression formed in the central Atlantic. Within 48 hours, it had a name. Within 72 hours, it was a hurricane, and it was heading directly at Puerto Rico.
Hasn't even begun to recover from Hurricane Irma, is now under another hurricane warning tonight.
It's horrible over there. There is not a leaf. Every tree is bent. Buildings, houses, businesses, everything is devastated.
You know, we have paradise, but this is what we have to go through. Been there before, done it before, and we do it again.
As you ride around the island, we found a lot of people who said, listen, I stayed for Irma, I'm going to stay again for Maria. But we have come across groups of people who said, there's no way I'm riding out another storm.
Maria forms east of the Lesser Antilles and moves northwest. On September 18th, in less than 24 hours, it goes through one of the most rapid intensifications ever recorded in the Atlantic Basin. Winds climb from 85 miles per hour to 160 miles per hour. The central pressure plunges. By the morning of September 19th, Maria is a Category 5. It plows into the island of Dominica that night. It scrapes the city clean. The Prime Minister of Dominica, hiding in his official residence, has to be evacuated through a hole in the roof. Then Maria turns toward Puerto Rico. In the hours before landfall, The storm goes through what meteorologists call an eye wall replacement cycle. The original eye wall collapses. A new, larger one forms around it. The storm weakens slightly, from Category 5 back down to a high-end Category 4. The eye wall doubles in size. This does not help Puerto Rico. It makes things worse. A wider eye wall means a wider band of catastrophic winds. A wider eye wall meant no corner of the island was out of reach. At 5:51 in the morning, local time, on September 20th, Maria makes landfall near the town of Yabucoa on Puerto Rico's southeastern coast.
Whoa. Get ready.
Winds at 155 miles per hour. Central pressure at 927 millibars. The strongest landfall on Puerto Rico since the San Felipe II hurricane of 1928. In the town of Yabucoa, in a neighborhood called Playa El Negro, a man named Carlos Bonilla Rodriguez is sheltering at a neighbor's house. He watches through the window as the wind reaches his own home a few yards away. He sees the roof lift, peel back, and disappear into the storm. He is one of the lucky ones. He is sheltering somewhere with walls. The storm pushes northwest across the island. Yabucoa to Caguas, Caguas to the Central Mountains, the Central Mountains to the northern coast. For more than 5 hours, every part of Puerto Rico is inside Maria. Every single one of the island's 78 municipalities is struck. There is no part of the island that is spared.
We can see some of the debris that's come off buildings from all around here. Bits of roof, side walls, balconies, satellite dishes, everything just getting ripped down by winds up to probably 150 miles per hour here. This was a worst case scenario for this island, the heavy populated eastern part of an island where 3.5 million people live, a U.S. territory, really getting pounded by these destructive winds. It feels like...
By 11 in the morning, the rivers are no longer rivers. They are brown floods carrying houses, cars, and refrigerators down out of the mountains. By 2 in the afternoon, the eye exits Puerto Rico's northwest coast. The wind dies down, the rain keeps falling, and the island is silent. For the first 12 hours after Maria leaves, almost no information gets out of Puerto Rico. Cell towers are down, power is out. Roads in the interior are blocked by mudslides, fallen trees, and collapsed houses. The few satellite phones in government hands are being used to coordinate first response, not to call reporters. In Washington, the early news coverage describes a serious storm with significant damage. The full picture is still hours away.
Not a single car in sight. We're the only ones out here. Emergency management now confirms 100% of Puerto Rico now without power everywhere you look.
What is happening on the ground is this. Every hospital is running on generators. Every dialysis center is closed. Every traffic light is dark. Every refrigerator full of food and medicine is starting to warm up. Every person who depends on a machine to stay alive is now depending on a generator, and on the fuel that runs that generator, and on the road that fuel has to travel down. And most of those roads no longer exist. While Washington waited for news, the real disaster was just beginning. By then, people are already dying.
Governor of Puerto Rico says 2/3 of the island are a disaster zone. Many residents there short on food, their homes flooded, and they're desperate to find loved ones. CBS News correspondent.
The first wave of deaths comes from the storm itself. People crushed under collapsed homes. People swept away by flash floods. People struck by debris in winds that reached over 170 miles per hour in some gusts. The official, immediate count is small. 16, then 24, then 34. By the end of the first week, the government of Puerto Rico has confirmed 16 storm-related deaths. The math and the reality were starting to drift apart. In the mountain town of Utuado, a hospital that survived Hurricane Irma loses power within hours of Maria's passage. Its generator works for 2 days, then the fuel runs out. A man named Ivan Luciano had been admitted to that hospital with diabetes complications during Irma. When his condition worsened and he needed dialysis, he was transferred 20 miles to a larger facility in Arecibo. He was in the intensive care unit there when Maria hit. The Arecibo hospital lost power. Ivan Luciano died on October 3rd. This is happening across the island. By federal estimates, only 11 of Puerto Rico's 69 hospitals had electricity or generator fuel 1 full week after the storm. Refrigerated medications spoiled. Oxygen concentrators stopped working. Operating rooms could not be sterilized. But the storm itself is not finished, even after it passes. In a coastal town, while the eye wall is still raking the island, a United States Coast Guard petty officer named Osiris Torres is sheltering with his family. He is an aviation maintenance technician. He has been stationed in Puerto Rico for years. The storm is at its peak. The wind is unsurvivable. The rain is horizontal. He hears something through the wall. It is his next-door neighbor calling for help. The neighbor's elderly mother is trapped. There is no one else. Osiris Torres opens his door, steps out into a Category 4 hurricane, and walks to his neighbor's house. He gets the mother out. He brings her back. They ride out the rest of the storm together. He does not file an after-action report. He does not call it a rescue. He goes back to his job at the air station the next morning. The story only surfaces in a Coast Guard internal lessons learned document months later.
This was the reality of the recovery. Help wasn't coming from the government. It came from neighbors.
In the town of Aguadilla on Puerto Rico's western coast, a couple named Zaira Arvelo Alicea and her husband Juan Carlos are at home when the storm hits. The water comes faster than they expect. It comes through the doors. It comes up to their waists. They climb onto a mattress. The water keeps rising. They float. For 16 hours, they float on a patched air mattress while their house collapses around them. When the storm finally ends, they are rescued by neighbors. They walk for miles to a family member's home in the next town over, soaked, cut, exhausted, but alive. In San Juan, in the historic neighborhood of La Perla, a community organizer rallies her neighbors before the federal government arrives. They feed each other. They clean the streets themselves. They distribute supplies that they pool from what little is left in their own homes. The federal aid that does arrive is delayed, undersized, and unevenly distributed. People who watch from the back of the room remember thinking that no one was coming for them.
En verdad nosotros no tenemos ayuda. La ayuda de nosotros es nosotros mismos. Nosotros fuimos que limpiamos aquí. Pero vamos adelante. Nosotros no vamos para atrás. Nosotros somos boricuas y somos de aquí, de La Perla. Y nosotros esto es de nosotros. Y esto nosotros lo vamos a defender.
Power is not fully restored to Puerto Rico for 328 days. 11 months. It is the longest blackout in American history, the second longest in modern world history. By the measure of total customer hours of power lost, it is more than 3 times larger than the next biggest blackout the United States has ever experienced. For most of that year, the official death toll from Hurricane Maria remains 64. A team at George Washington University, commissioned by the government of Puerto Rico itself, releases its findings in August of 2018. After analyzing excess mortality across the months following Maria, they arrive at a number: 2,975. A separate Harvard study, published months earlier, estimates the true toll could be even higher, closer to 4,600. The government of Puerto Rico revises the official count to 2,975. It takes 1 full year for the truth to make it onto an official document. Among those 2,975 is a 48-year-old man named Orlando Lopez Martinez. He had been receiving dialysis 3 times a week. After Maria, his treatment center closed for 4 days. When it reopened, the staff was rationing treatment because they could not get enough generator fuel. He got less than half of what he needed. He died on October 10th. The cause of death listed on his certificate is heart attack, brought on by kidney failure. The certificate does not say Hurricane Maria. That is how the official death toll stayed at 64 for almost a year. Hurricane Maria didn't just take lives, it erased them. The storm passed in a single morning. The dying took 11 months. I make these videos to tell stories that matter. Stories like this don't really end when the storm is over. They stay with the people who lived through them, and sometimes they slowly fade everywhere else. So if this story meant something to you, even for a moment, help it reach someone else. A like, a comment, even just sharing it. It might seem small, but it genuinely makes a difference. Because every bit of support pushes these stories further and keeps them from being forgotten. Stay safe. I'll see you in the next one.